Luton make their first trip to Anfield in 16 years on Wednesday night to take on the Premier League leaders Liverpool. Alongside me to preview what will be a great occasion for the football club is the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe. Jimbo, night away at the league leaders, fancy that?
This is going to be a scalp. This is the biggest one.
Bigger they come, harder they fall. We'll discuss it all after this intro.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls. We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast. Liverpool away Wednesday night. If you're going, 7:30 kickoff for this one. Weird kickoff time, but that is what it is. No UK TV if you're not going. The game will be live on TalkSport and I dare say 3 counties and all the local radio stations. So radio coverage, no TV coverage of this one. League leaders, Jimbo, away from home. Are we catching them at the right time, though? I say this, not obviously because they're top of the league, but on Sunday afternoon, they have their first chance of silverware in Jurgen Klopp's last game. So maybe an eye or two could be drifting towards that rather than little old Luton.
Is his last game? You mean last season?
Last season, sorry.
Gotcha.
Well, you never know. If we win, it might be that as well.
You never know. Who knows? What's those superstitious things you do that you have to like knock on wood before you say something that, yes, it could be. And I hope that Luton can capitalise on whatever they're currently planning for in the future or going for, because they're injury hit. They've still got world-class players all over the shop there. And obviously they might have one eye on the cup final for a first bit of silverware, and they're still obviously in for the treble, aren't they? And currently league leaders. So hopefully that means they take little old Luton a little less seriously. But something tells me after the scare that they got at Kenilworth Road that they might not.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Have we basically left ourselves with a hole in our foot by not being beaten by them at home? You know, we kind of bloodied their noses enough that they know that they can't not take us seriously now.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's going to be hard a second time round, probably against most sides that you've played really well against, because most teams they'll say no, they're going to treat each team with respect. But if you're a club the size of Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, you would be expecting to beat newly promoted sides, regardless of whether they were Luton sides or Leeds sides or whatever. So that's just an expectation of the size of their club and where they are and what they are setting out to try and achieve each season. So, I think from a professional point of view, they'll be saying, no, we'll treat it the game with respect, but we've all watched football long enough to know that you can, take things a little easier. And Luton have done that this season against Bolton in the Cup. Took their eye off it a little bit and had to have a replay to get that tie done. So it can happen. And it's one of these games. If Liverpool play to their full potential, then Luton have absolutely no chance. But you've got to hope that they don't, and then you've got to be bang on it to try and capitalise on any malaise that there may be.
Can't remember where I saw it. It might have been in a newspaper interview. I might have seen it in an interview. But Rob said that I know where I saw it now. Yeah, in the Sky build-up to the game on Sunday, he said we have to make them play the game they don't want to play, because if they play the game they want to play, they've got better players than us and they're going to beat us. And that's exactly the message here, really, isn't it? If we allow Liverpool to play the game they want to play, they'll beat us in much the same way that we got sucked into letting Sheffield United at the other end of the table play the game they wanted to play, and they beat us too. So it's that chaos with a bit of control that we're looking for in this one.
Yeah, I think so. And perhaps the extent of the injuries might do that, but they've got such a great squad, Liverpool. I mean, they've got this incredible record of even substitutes coming on and affecting the game and being involved in the goals. It's 20 this season, which is a huge stat. So even if it's not going particularly right for them at one stage of the game, when you've got 5 substitutes and the quality of the bench that they've got, they can come on and change the tide. It's just that the injuries that they do have and potentially are sweating over for this game do seem like very key players that are in form or, regularly do the business for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Lots of injuries for Liverpool, and you're right about their bench. I mean, we've obviously already become victim to their subs bench already this season. Obviously, Luis Diaz, who probably would have started, but for everything that he was going through at the time at our place, came off the bench to score. So that's one of those goals. But all of these injuries may just make that bench weaker. Therefore, if we can stay in the game, not many are going to be coming on, of a £50 million price tag. I mean, on Saturday at Brentford, they brought Mo Salah on. He's a doubt for this game. I've seen it on a few social media sites. I'm not sure whether I trust them or whether they're trustworthy, that he's a doubt for this game. And if he is in any way, shape or form a doubt for this game, he'll be saved for the cup final, right? Let's get that right. Or start on the bench at the very best. But then they also brought on Cody Gakpo. Again, big money signing. And there's plenty of others that were on the bench. But there were also 2 or 3 youth teamers on that bench. And if these injuries put another 2 or 3 youth teamers or 1 or 2 youth teamers on that bench, I'm not saying for 1 minute their academy's crap. Of course I'm not. But if they're not bringing Mo Salah off the bench, we'll take that. Or Luis Diaz, as it was at our place. If the injuries mean that that's not happening, then that's got to be a good time to play them.
Absolutely. It's exactly that thing that they've got to be not at total full strength and for the players to have a bit of an off day. Mo Salah doesn't regularly have an off day. He did at Kenilworth Road.
It also worries me.
Yeah, Luton managed him very well at Kenilworth Road, but then he's been out for a number of weeks with that injury that he picked up at AFCON, and then he comes on against Brentford and probably should have had 2. He still got 1 and
an assist.
And an assist, which is frightening. He's a very good player, and Luton will do very well to keep them in their pockets again this time around.
Yep. First trip to Anfield for 16 years. Of course, the last time we went there was the time that the club basically got saved. It was the night that 2020 were given preferred bidder status for the football club. We lost 5-0. No one really gave a shit about that because ultimately
best 5-0 defeat ever.
Absolutely. We went there not knowing if there'd be a club that night, and we came away knowing that there would be a club, and if the 5-0 is the sort of trade-off for it, then so be it. Watching that back 4 at Luton that night, which was scarily bad. It can't get no worse than that. So yeah, that's fine. That's the last trip to Anfield. If you've read the BBC Sport preview for this game, it's not in the 90s or anything like that. We did go in 2008. I sat there, I watched it.
I was there too.
It definitely happened. And hopefully it won't be quite so one-sided this time around. But we are going to probably the biggest fortress in English football right now. And it's very much like Kenilworth Road, isn't it? Particularly under floodlights. I mean, their European nights are sort of historic, really, aren't they? This isn't a European night, but it's still a night game. This is the very definition of as tough as it gets.
They've lost 1 in their last 54 at Anfield.
So there is a chance then.
There's a small chance. There's a small chance. I mean, that is a formidable record, isn't it? That is fortress stuff. Everybody dreams of that sort
That's
of thing.
3 seasons, isn't it?
Incredible record. And yeah, we are very fond of Kenilworth Road under the lights, and we know what atmosphere that can bring. But this is the ground, and I know everybody talks. A lot of people say, well, where is the atmosphere and stuff like that. I think at night games it happens. But there's also this thing which we talked of at the beginning of the season, a team like Liverpool expecting to beat teams like Luton. So the atmosphere is not always as electric as it should be. and we experienced that as well. You look at the conference years, it wasn't because Luton expected to beat those teams, and the fact that it took so long was added to the frustration. And so it will still be bloody noisy there. They've got 10 or 15,000 seats to the stadium, isn't there? It's a massive ground, and they're in this position of being on for all 4 cups, and this being the warm up for a trip down to Wembley to try and beat Chelsea in the League Cup. And it doesn't matter if you win the league or win cups every season. That's an exciting prospect. So I think that they'll be well up for it. It's just down to Luton to try and make them feel a bit nervous in any way, as it is in any big ground, as it was at St James's Park just a couple of weeks ago. Albeit that when Luton went 4-2 up, the Geordies got very noisy, didn't they? So it doesn't always work like that. But these are all sorts of things you've got to try and do against a massive side.
Yeah, indeed. This is tough. I mean, normally we try and pick out 3 threats from the opposition, don't we? I mean, first of all, this lot have got about 33, but picking 3 out who aren't injured is probably the sort of the difficult point. There is a doubt over Mo Salah, as I say. There is a doubt over Darwin Núñez, who went off, which would be a shame, actually, because if he's got the same radar he had at Kenilworth Road, we'll be absolutely fine and dandy.
I think since, though, he's found it, hasn't he? That goal he scored against Brentford was outrageous.
It really was.
He's bang on form, really. So if Salah and Núñez are not playing, then that is a boost.
And the man who set Núñez on his way for that goal, Diego Jota, definitely isn't playing. I've seen that he's ruled out for 2 months.
I think that's a huge boost as well. I think he's a fantastic finisher, really. He can score. You give him half a yard of space and he can whip it in the top corner or bottom corner. I think he's a very good finisher. It just seems to be a bit injury prone. So, yeah, I think that was a longer term, isn't it?
And they've already ruled him out for the cup final, so he's definitely not playing in this game. So that kind of leaves a front 3, I suspect, and I'm not Jurgen Klopp, but I suspect it will be something along the lines of, assuming Núñez is out. They've not actually confirmed that, and they were very hush-hush in the interviews after the game on Saturday, so maybe he's not. But if he is out...
It was precautionary, I think, wasn't it? In the same way we're hoping that Elijah might be precautionary, but I would be surprised if he plays, if he's up there.
Yeah, so if Núñez is out, we're looking at a front 3 of Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo, and probably Harvey Elliott. It's still not bad, is it?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I like the look of Harvey Elliott as well. I think he's seems to have had a very good season and seems to be kicking on in the same way that Curtis Jones seems to be as well. Another player that's going to be out, I think, or he's a doubt.
No, he's also out. Yeah, ruled out of the cup final.
So that's, in a midfield sense, a boost, because he seems to have hit another gear where I think he was in and out of the side, and now he's more of a regular, I think. So, as a regular, he can be a Liverpool side where they can put out 2 different 11s and both be fantastic. So yeah, that's a boost for Luton. But at the end of the day, we've been talking about Ross Barkley bossing so many midfields, and he did when they were at Luton. Sambi's got better since Luton.
He didn't even play in the Liverpool game, did he?
Yeah, exactly. So they won't know much about him. Well, hopefully they won't know much about him. So, when Luton have faced up to all these world-class players in midfield and more than equipped themselves, it's not as daunting a prospect as it could be, albeit that it's still hugely tough at a ground where they just don't lose.
Yeah, I mean, this might bite me on the arse, but I don't see this midfield 3 of Liverpool. So McAllister, Endo, other, Gravenberch probably, based on how they finished the game on Saturday. I don't see them as strong as, say, the Man City 3 that Barkley dominated in particular. Maybe even not as strong as the way the Man United midfield were lined up. Mainu that we mentioned in the review podcast, Casemiro, and Bruno Fernandes, very similar actually. Endo and Casemiro commit the same amount of fouls and never get sent off. Excuse me. And McAllister, and I mean, obviously at our place, McAllister tried to referee the game as well, didn't he? But I don't see them quite as strong as certainly as that Man City one. So other than the stick he's going to be taking from the stands because of his history, there's no reason why Barkley can't have a right good go at this one. And let's be honest, he's going to be right up for having a right good go at this one, isn't he?
Yeah, I really hope so. I mean, the only time that he's not really been that effective is when he's been stifled out of a game. You know, your Sheffield United one last week, and the Bolton one really didn't really seem to be firing on that one. All the other occasions, he's been absolutely outstanding. If not the best player on the pitch, one of. And you know, we talked in the last podcast about this stat of him being in the top 1% of all the big European leagues of take on chances created from take-ons. And he relishes open space, but then if you look at the clips of him, he'll take on 3 players to create it if he needs. So he's in such a great vein of form that you just hope that he can go up there and give his best, because if he does, then Luton have always got a chance.
Yeah, indeed. Yep. Szoboszlai is also a doubt for this game, isn't he? Which is why I didn't include him in the midfield 3. Let's look at Luton then. Team selection, you mentioned it. Elijah Adebayo. Obviously, we're doing this podcast before Rob's press conference on Tuesday, where I suspect he'll confirm one way or another whether Elijah's fit or not fit. I think we're of the opinion that a hamstring doesn't heal itself within 3 days, so we're going to go down the line of he's not fit.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for all we'd want him to be up there and you know, giving their back line something to think about, as good as they are, I don't think it's the game to risk him.
Well, you don't want an Elise, do you?
No, well, exactly. Hamstrings, we've seen how damaging they have been to many of the players. And Mads Andersen's still out, although, you know, that I saw him limp past me in the mix zone on Saturday, and I don't think that was a hamstring. He must have done something else. He was very, very gingerly walking down the corridor there, and he had some crutches just in case. I don't think we're going to be seeing him for a while, I'll tell you that much. But there was an epidemic of hamstring injuries earlier in the season for Luton, and you can't risk a player who's in such good form as Elijah. I think with it being Liverpool, you go up there and they'll be hoping and expecting to try and get something from the game, but nobody else will. And then you've got Man City in the FA Cup, which we'd all like a cup run, but let's face it, it's not as important as trying to stay up. And then if he's out for 2 games, then you take that, I think. If somehow they get him back on the pitch and he's fine, great, but you'd be sort of watching through your fingers almost, really, wouldn't it? Hope he doesn't do himself a mischief.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing we know for sure is if Elijah's got a chance to play, he'll do it. I mean, this is the bloke who couldn't walk at Huddersfield, and he still went, go on then, I'll give it a crack in the playoff semi-final, you know? I mean, he just couldn't move, and he's still prepared to put himself on the line. So we know that if Elijah doesn't play, he literally physically cannot play.
I think the difference with that, though, it was all or nothing, and then you've got a whole summer
yeah,
after
true.
that, haven't you? And I think you can chuck the kitchen sink in that scenario, but here it's just like we're going into a very important run of fixtures after the Cup anyway, that you need him on the pitch, albeit, you know, if he's not, then Morris is firing all of a sudden. Well, not all of a sudden, actually. He's been very good since the turn of the year, and maybe even just a little bit before. So, you know, Luton have got this record of scoring in 12 consecutive Premier League games, which is, and it was flagged on Match of the Day, and we see it with our own eyes. It's one of the main reasons why Luton look like the more capable of all the newly promoted sides to avoid the drop, albeit after that Everton draw against Crystal Palace on Monday night, that Luton have slipped back into the bottom 3 on goal difference, but there's still a game in hand, so it's still positive.
Yeah, for a few weeks, of course, this is the game in hand, isn't it? But obviously, we know that the game in hand is actually Bournemouth, and they'll all level itself out again at the weekend when everyone else plays. Yeah, I mean, just on Morris, keeping pretty good company in the old statistical stakes, isn't he, Morris? And really has caught form since the turn of the year.
Yeah, he really has. I was reading that stat earlier today. It's only Mohamed Salah, Bukayo Saka, who's done it twice, and Rasmus Højlund, who have enjoyed longer runs in the top flight this season of Carlton Morris's, where he's scored or assisted in each of his last 5 league appearances. He's got 4 goals and 2 assists. Phenomenal for a player that found himself on the bench because he wasn't scoring, and has sort of really come back into the side. And with this slight formation change where we've got Elijah heading it up and him just behind, it's really, really worked out for him, and he's got so much more involved in the game. Against Manchester United at the weekend, his best performance in a Luton shirt for sure. And you know, if he looks ready to take on the mantle, I think if Elijah's not going to be there for any amount of time.
Yeah, Captain Carlton in absolutely superb form, and of course, just prior to that little run there, he wouldn't have got the 2 assists for the 2 Sheffield United own goals, but had he not been on the pitch, the balls wouldn't have been in the box for Sheffield United to do what they did for us and put them in the back of the net. Any other changes? Obviously, if he is fit, Elijah comes in for Cauley Woodrow. That's just how it's been. No problem with that whatsoever. But any other changes to the starting 11 here?
I think you keep it as much as it was against Man United, because bar that Rick at the 37 seconds in, Amari Bell had a really good game after that. I think the defence largely did when they weren't getting balls pinged over the top, and Garnacho and co were running onto them, which is, you know, it was to be expected in the way that Luton were trying to attack the game. It was just one of those risks that you had to take. Other than that, I thought they defended quite well. So no, I don't think so. The good thing is that, barring Mads and obviously Nakamba, who seems to be out of his knee brace, I've seen a picture of him of late, so that's good news. And back on the bike, I've heard. So get back into cardio training, so that is another bonus. But obviously we're not going to see him for a while. But other than those two, Locks as well. By the way, what a video and a reception he got against Manchester United, as he did every time he comes on. But it's good to see him back up to his usual self, really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the video on the club YouTube channel of Locks going through everything that happened, and it just puts it into perspective. I mean, I was there that day. It was horrible. I'll never forget it. I want to forget it, but you just can't. But then when you hear the man who went through it himself saying that he was dead for 3 minutes, you're like, fuck me. I mean, you know, it's like, excuse my French, you're like, wow, football really, 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 really doesn't matter. And of course, we've not played on that, but that's a very much part of everything that we do. I highlighted it when we saw that video of the boys getting their debut Premier League balls. They had the Brighton pre-match thing ready to go, and in the corner it's got 4 Locks and his shirt, hasn't it? And I'm led to believe that's on everything that they do in that meeting room. It's got that in the corner. So him just being around the place just livens it all up. And yeah, I mean, incredible, really. You know, it all just brings tears to your eyes just thinking about what he went through that day. And just thankfully, we're just all thankful that he's still with us. That's for...
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. I mean, my point being, and it's right to bring that up and talk about that as a positive, because it really was. It's always great to see him around. I saw him in the, I just saw us going to the mix zone and shook his hand. It's a quick hello, because there was many people there wanted to take a selfie with the great man. So fair play. But yeah, it's good to see him. My point though was that other than him and Mads and Nakamba, it's a full strength squad almost to pick from. Brown actually was out, wasn't he? We've got to find out what the scenario was with him, because he's been missing for a couple of weeks now, hasn't he? And he might have been like an ideal player to come in, because he's great with the press, wasn't he? Isn't he? So that it could have been an option. But other than that, I think that Luton are well stocked and able to pick the best team for the job, and the players that are most in form. And I think with Chong coming in and doing so well, I think you give him another go and see what he can do at Anfield.
Well, especially given that he gave us that incredible moment at Kenilworth Road in the reverse meeting. May not be a Kabore to roll the ball into him, although he's back on the bench now. And maybe they might go with Kabore for his more defensive skills as well as his attacking ones here, because we are probably going to be penned back a little bit. Yeah. But then Chio's doing nothing wrong, has he? So if you go with Chio, that's absolutely fine. In the reverse fixture, and actually let's come on to how we hurt this Liverpool side. In the reverse fixture, we're all about Chio or Alexander-Arnold. That's the way to target them. Get after them that way round. Well, we've got two problems now. One, Alexander-Arnold's ruled out, so we can't go at him. And two, the bugger that they've got in place of him looks bloody good, who can actually defend, unlike Alexander-Arnold. Connor Bradley is who I'm talking about. He looks mighty good. For a fellow who was on loan at Bolton last season, he looks the business. But that's obviously on the other side to Chio anyway. It looks like Andy Robertson's back down that left-hand side, so we're not going to get a massive amount of joy there. Albeit, we know that Liverpool are going to play on the halfway line with that high line that they play. So if Barkley or Sambi get the ball, there's an awful lot of space for Chio to run in behind. So maybe that keeps him in the side over Kabore, just on the attacking point of it.
I think so, because you know, for all of Luton's possession of late, and they had the most amount against Manchester United as well, which is astonishing.
You can flip the numbers here, can't you?
Yeah, exactly, you can. Liverpool are going to dominate the ball, so when you get it, you've got to make it count. And in the way that Manchester United played on the counter against Luton at Kenilworth Road, then there's options there, and certainly for Chio. And Chong, in fact, the way that he gave them a frightener when they came down to Kenilworth Road as well. So yeah, I think that would be a good shout. Is probably why I'd favour not chopping and changing too much. I mean, Kabore's got to come back into it at some stage, because he won't be able to flog Chio again and again and again, considering he had that ankle problem around the last international break. You don't want him to break down again.
Well, at some point we'll have Hashioka's work permit stroke, whatever it is that we're waiting for, international clearance or whatever it is, for him to come into the side.
I don't think you see him at Anfield.
No, I'm not.
Maybe a good shout for the cup game.
For the cup game, yeah.
At Man City, but I don't think you see him at Anfield. But yeah, but it gives options, doesn't it? At that, but at the moment, Chio's not doing a bad job whatsoever.
No, he's not. No. I think that's fair enough. Unchanged side, unless of course Elijah has made a wonderful recovery. And if he did go off as a precaution, who knows? Maybe maybe they did take him off because they wanted him more on Wednesday than what they wanted him on Sunday. It might be that way. So how do we get at this side then? They're going to have this high line, aren't they? They're going to squeeze the pitch up very much like we are, actually. I can see this game being played within 20 yards of our half, their 11 against our 11. You're right with Chio, you're right with Chong. Is this a game, though, where we do just need to kind of say, for all we're progressing as a side, we're using our possession and we're using our new formation and the evolution and everything that we've gone through over the last 6 weeks? Is this one where we've just got to park that and go back to what we did in the Championship, direct, get it forward, get Morris up against Van Dijk and who would it be? Kanate, presumably. And, get men around him and try and win second balls. Have we got to go back to that sort of stage of it? I I suspect we're not going to, and the reason why I say this is because there was a wonderful piece by Oliver Kay in The Athletic at the weekend. He did an interview with Rob Edwards, and Rob Edwards, there's an actual snippet in it where Rob Edwards was talking about the Brentford game, and he watched the Brentford game and he didn't recognise anything that he liked about football in the Brentford game, and since then he's made a conscious effort to change. Obviously the Brentford game was, ahead of the last Liverpool game, so I don't see us going back to that style, but maybe if we were to do it, would this be the game to do it?
Well, I think it's still a weapon that Luton can use, but they've evolved away from that. It just, when you're playing against Chelsea and Newcastle and Manchester United, and you're having more of the ball than them, that's something. Obviously, you've got to do something with it, but then it speaks to be able to change the way that you play, to give yourself more of a platform, and it has, because they've been in games. They've been, within one goal of all these big teams, which is remarkable. How you go up to Anfield is a different matter. I think that as much as the two grounds, them and Anfield and St James's, have a similar sort of ferocious feel about them, Liverpool are in greater form than Newcastle, so I don't think you have as much joy with the ball there. So I think it's an option, which is good, because if the plan A doesn't work, you've got to have another one, otherwise you're knackered. But that high line is mouth-watering if you can get it right, and there's every reason to think you could with the way that Sambi and Ross Barkley are playing, and you can see their highlight reels of how they're pinging balls into those channels. In fact, at 442 did a video on it about how that is one of Luton's major tactics, and we've all seen that with our own eyes, but it's nice that other people are picking up on it.
Well, it's not, because they're sharing it to the world.
Yeah, I know. But it's one thing knowing that that's what it's going to do. You've
got to deal with it. Yeah.
And there's only so many ways you can actually beat teams, but as Liverpool will probably attest, probably what they're going to do. They're not going to change for Luton. Got to bloody stop it though, haven't you? That's the trouble. So, Luton aren't in that mould at all. I'm not suggesting that, but if those things are working, and Liverpool will expect that they can impose their game on, and when you get the ball back, if you can do that and switch the play quickly, get them running backwards, then it's the tactic you've got to employ.
Yeah, it comes back to what the boys said to James in the review podcast of the Man United game. It's risk and reward, and they're prepared to risk for the rewards, and they're not getting the points rewards that their risks are dictating in recent times, as in immediately recent, but over the course of that spell since the Brentford game, taking away the Arsenal-Man United game, Arsenal-Man City games, which we were never going to get much out of anyway. Since then, the rewards have been there. The form's very, very good, and it was only a couple of weeks ago that we were matching Liverpool for form, wasn't it, in terms of points over 5-6 games or whatever it was, and goals of 2024 and everything else. Obviously they've kicked on a little bit since then. They went a bit goal crazy at Brentford on Saturday, for example. But
although I did hear that I think it was from a Brentford fan saying that's probably the worst that Brentford have played all season. So,
well, I didn't recognise that Brentford defence in that game. I mean, obviously the one thing about Luton not playing on Saturday is you can sit down and watch all the kickoff games. And I haven't seen Brentford defend that badly before, but then on the flip side of that, they're up against a pretty damn good attack, aren't they? So, yeah, it is. But for the immediacy at the start of 2024, there was a reason why Rob Edwards was a candidate for Manager of the Month alongside Jurgen Klopp. It's because our form was very, very good. And who knows? You just don't know. You get something that you can hang on to. Our record at Anfield's crap. Let's be honest. It is. It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Yes. Last 14 visits and nothing. Yeah. Liverpool have only beaten Grimsby more than they've beaten Luton at Anfield, which is ominous. But it's been a very long time since it's been a league game.
Yeah. Well, at least they've beaten someone there more than what we have. See, it's a tough night at the office, isn't it? Even if they've got their whole 11 out, as James said earlier, they've got another one in backup that's pretty damn good as well. But we've not wanted to use the term "we've nothing to lose" very often this season, because it's not the case. But I think on this occasion, it very much is the case. Anything you get away to the league leaders in terms of the relegation battle, you look at the teams around us, not many are going there and getting anything. Although I do remember a couple of weeks ago, Burnley went there. They lost 3-1. They killed themselves 3 times like Burnley do. But the centre forward had 2 1-on-1s with the goalkeeper and he put them both wide. If he puts them both in, they go and get a point there. I'd wager if Morris is in the same situation, in the same form that he's in right now, he would put those in. So maybe we're not devoid of hope, but realistically, this is a tough assignment.
I don't think you can level devoid of hope at Luton at all this season. The very fact that they've been in most games with the big sides, certainly, that they're not expected to be, and given them most of them a scare. And it's not just at Kenilworth Road now. The away form's been pretty good of late. Was it like 5 points, 8 goals last 3 away games is pretty good. So that, I mean, I think that gives you an opportunity to go up there and do something. I don't think it's like a Sheffield United going there at the moment. And obviously, you go up there and we talked about the spaces, but set pieces could be an option, as they have been all season. They're up there for they got 34 goals and 11 of them from set pieces, which is pretty good. 32% record, if I'm not mistaken.
Percentage-wise, second only to Everton, I believe. So yeah, let's hope that that's a fact. I mean, that is a factor, isn't it? It's always a factor for us. And if we can isolate Virgil van Dijk from the defensive side of them things, we might get some joy from set pieces. Actually, that is very much. And lots of teams do have joy against Liverpool. They don't always score, but they can win the first contact if they keep Van Dijk out of the equation. So there are reasons why we can get at this Liverpool defence.
Oh, the goalie is probably going to be different as well. He's not going to be Alisson.
No, it's not. He's definitely out as well, I believe.
Kelleher as well. But I mean, everything I've seen of him looks like he's a pretty good understudy, but he's not Alisson, who's incredible.
Yeah, he is. Quite possibly the best in the world, actually, Alisson, right now. But obviously, Man City fans will disagree with that, and that's well within their rights to do that. Yeah, tough night at the office, but hey, we go there with hope, more hope than expectation. Not like when we went to Newcastle, where we genuinely expected that we could get something from the game. But that's not to say that we won't get anything from the game. We will finish this episode of the podcast, as we always do, with our score predictions. James, how does Liverpool v Luton end?
After me not giving the old spiel about not devoid of hope, I think that they'll run them close, but their record at home is so incredible that I probably would see them pipping Luton. But only narrowly. So I'm going to give it the old popular 2-1 scoreline.
2-1 to Liverpool for James. I still can't bring myself to predict Luton to lose on these things. I'm not going up to Anfield on Wednesday predicting us to lose. There was that famous game, wasn't there, where we had 3 goalkeepers and drew 3-3 with them at Anfield in the 80s. If Tony was here, he'd tell us all about that game. He's not. But it did happen. But I think a goal less. 2-2. Width of the crossbar away from landing old Desmond on Sunday, so we'll give it another crack in this one, and if we come away with a 2-2, happy days all round.
I'm certainly not going to mess around with any jokey scores
like I did
last time, because 7 minutes in and I was getting very squeaky ass.
Yeah, do not tempt that one to come back to haunt us, that's for sure. That's it for this episode of the podcast. Just before we finish, though, if you are one of the 2,500 odd Luton fans that are going to this game, please remember, if you're singing a song on Wednesday night, make sure you know what you are singing. Obviously, after the home game, there was issues with tragedy chanting and things like that. We do not want a repeat of that. For two reasons, really. First of all, what you would be singing about is not a laughing matter. In fact, if you're not sure what happened at Hillsborough, if you're too young to know what happened at Hillsborough, before you go into the away end, pop around 5-minute walk just to the other side of the ground. There's a Hillsborough memorial. If you see that, you'll soon understand it really is not worth singing about. Please, please, please don't do that. But the other reason, please don't do that, it is a criminal offence to tragedy chant in this country now. And you do not want to be arrested for doing anything like that. As I say, 97 people lost their lives at Hillsborough on that day in 1989. It is not something to sing about. We all go to football matches to enjoy ourselves, to watch our team play, to watch our team win. But most importantly, we all go there fully intending to go back home again after the game. 97 people were not given that luxury on that April afternoon in 1989. Please, 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 please do not sing about it. It is not a laughing matter. If you don't know what is being sung, for the good of everything, please do not sing it. We've so many great songs about Rob Edwards, about Tom Lockyer, about all of the players that are on the football pitch. Keep all of the songs positive. There's so many great things to sing about at this club right now. If you do not know what you're singing, just please don't sing it. It is not worth it at all. And as I say, Hillsborough or anything to do with Hillsborough is not a singing and laughing matter.
Yeah, or any other unfortunate tragedy there is, just don't do it. Fully echo those words, mate.
But if you are one of the 2,500 or so that are going, be loud, be proud. As I say, get right behind the boys. Christ, they're going to need it on Wednesday night. As James said, there's a new stand behind us in that away end, and they've got another sort of 10,000 fans there. I think it's up to 60,000 now, isn't it? So it's as big a crowd at Anfield as we're ever going to have played in front of. So the boys are going to need to hear all of our songs and things like that. So do get behind them. But as I say, just be aware of what you're singing, please. Thanks to James for keeping me company for this preview. We will, of course, be back to review the game. That will be out somewhere in the vicinity of Thursday night / Friday morning, depending on how quickly I get back or not back from Anfield on Wednesday night. If we won, I might not get back very quickly at all.
How many matchsticks I can stick in my eyes while I'm editing it.
Indeed, yeah. Absolutely. So thanks to you for watching, for listening. Let us know your score predictions. Not a great deal of time to let us know this one, but if you do get it correct, of a Luton persuasion, of course. If it's something silly like 5-0 Liverpool, we won't even bother reading through them. Did they get
it correct on the last one?
They didn't, nope. It is, yeah. If you get it right, we will give you a shout out in that review episode. Please do keep on liking and subscribing, particularly subscribing to where you get the podcast. They're going to be coming thick and fast over the next few weeks with all the games that are coming up, and we don't want you to miss out on one. So if you subscribe, you'll get a notification letting you know exactly when that happens. Thanks to the Hightown Club for staging our studio as always, to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you see on set. Until the review episode of the podcast, come on you Hatters, we can do this.
Can you believe it? We are Premier League! Yes!
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls.
We're Luton people, and